welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we have a one-off episode with the 1961 film, The Snake Woman. This is Castle of Horror, episode 338. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it, so warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Welcome back. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards, and you were not with us for the last episode we did for it, so it's been a while. Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the Pen America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
I am slowly recovering from my crash after 2 months and especially one really heavy duty week of promoting an Indiegogo. So it is good to be back.
You know, I afterwards, when we get into just random stuff, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on live tweeting and the efficacy of that. I mean, seriously, I'd love to hear like why that worked for you. It was useful for you.
It did. It truly did.
So save those thoughts, but I do want to talk about it. So, all right. And finally, also in Denver, color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello, Julia.
Hello, Julia.
Hello. Okay, The Snake Woman, brought to you by Tony Salvaggio, who said we should watch this movie.
And the letter T.
The Snake Woman, a.k.a. The Terror of the Snake Woman, is a black and white 1961 British horror film produced by George Fowler, directed by Sidney Furie. It stars Susan Travers and John McCarthy. It was shown on a double bill with a lot of different movies, including Manster and the 1958 The Vikings and the 1961 Dr. Blood's Coffin. It is set in a small English village at the turn of the 20th century, and it tells the story of Atheris, a young woman who has the power to transform from human to cobra, and the Scotland Yard detective John McCarthy sent to investigate a series of deaths that involve that snake woman. Unusual because all the victims die after being bitten by snakes that are not native to the UK. That's what sends our secret agent to this village. So the snake woman, Tony, here's what we're going to do. It's going to go for opening thoughts. Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go. You said, hey, before we move on to our Satanic Panic series of the summer, you wanted to have a brief stopover in Northumberland to visit the Snake Woman. So tell me about this film and your opening thoughts about it.
Oh, it's way simpler than that. I knew we had some time, and this is more of just how I operate, right? Like, I see a movie called The Snake Woman. It's in black and white, and it says rare,
Yeah.
And this is, I don't sleep much, as people know if you've listened before. And so these are the late night things where I'm like, oh, well, rare movie called The Snake Woman. I'll check that out right now. I think originally, like when I first proposed it was on Amazon for free. And that's, because it was part of if you like these weird movies, you'll like this other one.
Yeah.
Which actually, I have to agree with Amazon knows me well enough right now.
Right.
When they propose things, I'll at least check it out. And so I watched the beginning into it a little bit and went, this is kind of cool and atmospheric and crazy enough that I hope the rest of it kind of has this vibe, and I should see if anybody else in the crew wants to do this movie. So when we had some space is where because that's just what I gravitate to. This is just me. I like weird orphaned movies.
Yes. I love that concept. You called it rare. That concept that somebody would say because in theory, what movie is rare? Any movie is just as available as any other movie. But it means, but you're right. I mean, it still it's a label that fits.
It was built into the poster, so that I guess
movies that are kind of forgotten are in a sense rare. You're kind of keeping them alive by watching them. So yes, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No. I mean, is it the best movie in the world? No, I kind of agree with some of the critics, but I really do like the atmosphere, and I love the just bonkers beginning of it, which we'll get into.
Yes.
But
yeah.
Give me a mad scientist who's totally out of whack.
Yeah.
And some weird pseudoscience throughout the movie, and I'm kind of okay with it. But does it hold up for everybody else? I'm always just a little bit wary though, because I don't. I know the shoe's going to drop one day where I'm going to bring up something and everybody's going to go, "I can't believe your privileges are revoked." But for now,
If
I'm
that
always
hasn't
scared of
happened to
that.
me, it's not going to happen to you. I'm pretty sorry. I'm
But
pretty certain.
I actually I like the atmosphere of this movie, and I like finding weird orphan films to watch at all hours of the night. So
Love it. Love it. Julia, it's been a couple days since we watched The Snake Woman, so hopefully you've been able to review it in your head. But if you recall, this is the one that begins with the 60-year-old woman having a miracle snake baby. So what are your thoughts?
sell it.
I was like,
on The Snake Woman.
that was what I said to Jason. I'm like, oh, you're with child. First of all, she didn't look like she was with child. And second of all, she looked like it was definitely a miracle snake baby.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely weird. It's there's a lot of disturbing things. It definitely fits horror. It's a lot of disturbing stuff. It's a lot of bizarre things, some neat images, some neat mood, atmospheric effects, I guess, and some good performances. It's silly. I mean, it's a silly film. But yeah, I think that the Snake Woman is awesome. She's really interesting and cool, and beautiful. And but there's just so many things. I think I almost wish that they would have made it into a comedy, because it's like kind of that, it's kind of like. I'm trying to think of which one was the movie that we did. Well, anyway, there's a few movies that they're just better off if you think of them as being comedies rather than anything by Ed Wood, for example. So I mean, I think that would have been more fun. But it was fun to watch. We definitely enjoyed it. We got a kick out of a lot of the things, and yeah, I mean, I think. Obviously, they didn't have a lot of money to work with, so I think they did a lot better than I could with that budget. And the snakes were super creepy and scary. So I think it did what it was supposed to do.
Very good. All right. Drew, I mean, what are your thoughts?
So Amazon called this rare, which I will not argue against. It also called it classic, which I will disagree with. I did not hate this movie. And a lot of that is the length. It's just barely over an hour. It does not overstay its welcome, at all. And it has one scene that I thought was wonderful and atmospheric, and I'll get into that in later. But if I'm speaking critically about it, which of course we have to as part of the show, there's a lot of narrative problems with this in particular, that over half of its runtime has already passed, and it still hasn't decided who the main character of this movie is. It's definitely meandering in a way that it's got a lot of pacing issues. And it definitely comes across like they were trying to, well, I mean, I know for a fact, because I did some reading on the movie later, that they're trying to ape Hammer, but without the money that Hammer had. And I think that really does come through. All of which this does make it seem like I hated the movie, which I did not. I think it was it was entertaining enough to where I got through the runtime, even though I do think a lot of it is a bit talky and dry.
No, that's totally fair.
But it's the weirdness of it, especially the pseudoscience, because in particular, this is one of thousands of movies probably that doesn't understand how cold blood actually works.
Yes.
I do find myself, it's almost a shame. Not that I'm not excited to do the Satanic Panic movies, but it's almost a shame we aren't doing a retrospective on snake women, because or snake people, because there's actually there's the reptile, there's Layer of the White Worm, and it would make a great marathon, if you were to marathon all these movies together. And I've been marathoning a lot of horror movies lately, so I know what I'm talking about.
That's a
silly.
really wonderful idea. That
Oh
that would be
yeah, we
good.
could probably throw fangs, which is also called snakes. I don't know if you remember that, Jason, from Weird
No.
Wednesday. Oh man, filmed in Texas. This guy who goes by Snaky Bender gets snake
Bender.
revenge on people. If you haven't seen this movie, it's campily amazing.
I
It's one of
can't
my
believe I've
all-time
forgotten
favorite
this movie.
Weird Wednesdays. Also, there's a part in the through line that takes place on Wednesdays, so it made the perfect Colorado Draft House Weird Wednesdays.
Wow.
It showed multiple times just because of that, and I think it was labeled as snakes on the reel, but I think it goes by fangs.
And for the
well,
listener who is momentarily confused, when Tony refers to the Colorado Draft House, you mean the Austin Alamo Draft House that was on Colorado Boulevard, which is
yeah,
just
original
a location.
upstairs. For years.
Oh
was
God,
the
what a
the
great
flagship
location that
one.
was.
That
That
was
was
amazing.
that was the one where Vin Diesel showed up. It was the one where Mel Gibson showed up. It was the one where Peter Jackson showed up. That was
All together?
those were the days. Not all together, although
No,
what a
that would have
party
been
that was.
amazing. Those were but Numbathon
Yeah.
memories, but just so many. Phantasm Fest was there. Just
Yeah.
I have such very very fond memories of so many awesome shows. The Udo Kier drunken revelry, all of that amazing.
So all right. My thoughts on the Snake Woman, and then we'll get right into it. I actually am so glad we watched this. I agree with everything that you guys said. The pacing problems, the science makes no sense. But what I love, I've just found recently that if you tell me, oh, this movie came out in 1958 or 1961 in this case, and it was intended to be the lower half of a double bill, you know what that means to me is that the idea that a single human being in 2021 actually watching that movie, you know, instead of whatever it is else they could be watching, that's a miracle. And so because it feels like something that just blinked out of existence and then blinked back into existence, you know, what is that, like 70 years later, it feels like I'm participating in some kind of communion that's difficult to reproduce except through these very obscure films. So something like this is just exactly what I love. I'm just very happy with this. Also, as Tony has mentioned many times, if you're looking for a way to rip off ideas or if you're looking to be inspired and you want ideas that aren't currently being used, what you do is you watch extremely obscure movies. And so I really enjoyed this. Drew had it right. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's barely the length of a film. You watch
It's
it
the
and
same
it's
length
gone.
as the episode of Doctor Who that I watched earlier
Right.
today.
Right. You know, and the fact is you can like surf YouTube and 68 minutes go by in the blink of an eye. So you know, it's I enjoyed that. Anyway, okay, so let's get into it. The Snake Woman is the beginning. The Snake Woman is essentially a snake vampire woman. She's a were snake. But before we get to her, this movie takes its time setting up the peculiarly folkloric backstory. Folkloric by way of like Universal Studios.
Also, by way of mad scientist.
Yes.
It's good that you
our proto Fraser Crane, Niles Crane
Niles
character.
Crane.
Yeah, that's exactly what Jason said. He's like, "Hey, it's Niles Crane."
That guy looks. Yeah. So we have
it's good. It's
go ahead,
good that you bring up Universal though, because as much as this movie tries to crib from Hammer, it cribs a lot from the Wolfman.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Oh yeah.
It drinks very deep from the Wolfman well.
Well, in a way, it also harkens to that the Werewolf of London, because remember how we talked about how the weird thing about Werewolf of London is it just walks along this crazy line between pseudoscience and magic, and it just kind of just goes back and forth all the time which is dreamy, you know. And I think if you get too realistic, you'll have writers and you'll have viewers who are going, oh, that doesn't make any sense. Explain that to me more. But honestly, I really prefer if you explain it to me less. This is sort of more my speed.
It even, going back to what you're talking about, it even sets it up with the, we're not immediately thrust into the mad scientist, herpetologist layer. We start with a village with somebody, playing flute to a
shepherd playing the flute.
A shepherd, and which harkens. I mean, they're really trying things, which is kind of
Yes.
cool. Not all of it is perhaps as successful as some people would want, but they're that's what. And I'll take something, not every time, but especially a black and white, Corman style movie that swings for the fences. Like, I'm way into that.
Yeah, I agree.
So starting there, and then we quickly go to our doctor, who has decided that he needs to cure his wife's mental illness with snake
Yes.
venom, which
By
that's what
injecting
said. That's
snake
why
His
venom.
pregnant wife.
his pregnant
Which-
wife.
Apparently, his magically pregnant wife, because she
Yes.
does appear to be 60 years old. Maybe I'm just imagining this, but
She doesn't look. She's not a spring chicken.
Right.
But
And
but
hey,
the
I'm not
idea,
knocking it. If you were 60 and you could get pregnant, more power to you. I got zero
yes.
objections.
But I haven't. I guess I haven't looked it up. Perhaps I should have. But I don't recall at any point anyone going, "I know what cures mental illness: snake venom."
Okay, can we talk real quick about using snake venom for anything? Because they make references in the dialogue, and they say, "Oh, snake venom has been used to cure X and Y and Z." Is there any truth to this at all? Has
I have
I
no
want to say
idea.
there's probably some compounds, but I don't think in the way that this.
I mean, I'm just Googling it and I'm immediately seeing people go, hey, you want to buy some snake venom for stuff? It says snake
Yeah.
venoms have been used as medical tools for thousands of years, especially in traditional Chinese medicine. Consequently,
yeah.
snake venoms can be considered as mini drug libraries in which each drug is pharmacologically active. However,
mean-
less than 0.01% of these toxins have been identified and characterized. So yeah, I mean, it's used,
Right.
outside of FDA territory.
Okay,
Also,
but
snake oil.
yes.
Yeah.
which is-
In his case, the doctor, the good doctor, what did we?
I don't know.
call
He's
him
not so
again?
good. He's kind of selfish.
Okay,
and
well,
kind of
they're possibly
prick.
quite mad. Dr. Adderson. Dr. Adderson? I did not realize his
No,
name was a
yes.
snake pun.
Yes.
Okay. Now we're really in the realm of fable. But okay, he is, he milks a venomous snake into a jar and then takes a syringe.
A lot of
and just-
seeming animal abuse in this movie, by the way.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
that
it looks
is
like
the-
he really is.
I think.
Yeah, but
I mean,
seeing
yes,
that guy
it's
pick up
probably-
that snake, first of all, it taught me how to pick up a snake. I thought that was pretty great. That was cool. But not that I'm gonna go do it, but
I was about
that
to
was-
say, don't give me
Right.
ideas.
But yeah, he milks the snake and then he just takes a syringe and he just sucks up some venom and then just
see,
toddles over.
even if you are doing medical, even if there is snake venom that has medical usage, I'm pretty sure this is not how you would test it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yes.
I
I'm with
definitely
you.
don't
George.
think you can test it on someone that's pregnant.
Well, he
Right.
doesn't
She
care about.
says
He
that.
said he did not care about that baby. He only cared about science. So she's 51, which is not 60, but still a little bit on the old side to be having magic babies.
And I apologize to the woman for saying
Well,
that.
I was the one who said I thought she was 61.
Well,
when I was
it's not
watching
like
it.
they photograph her in a way to do her any favors,
Yes,
Jason.
Right.
truth.
Yeah, she's meant to be. I mean, they definitely make her kind of dowdy. And we're supposed
She's
to
supposed to be
also
sick, so she's supposed to not look
think,
good.
yeah, and we're also supposed to think they don't say much about her mental illness. Either way, none of the symptoms she exhibits seem like something you would solve by injecting someone with
Right?
venom. Certainly not
Well,
a
it
pregnant
feels
woman, and
very
she's very
medieval.
concerned about what's going to happen with this venom and her child.
Yes, and he says something to the effect of, "Well, this is way more important than a baby."
Yeah.
or something.
Right. My science is right. Yeah, my experiments
He's-
are way more important.
He has got to be one of the most stereotypically British mad scientists ever, too. Just the way
Absolutely.
he talks, and it's just ridiculous.
It's wonderful. Although it does remind me a lot of Larry Blameyer's, The Lost Skeleton, where he keeps talking about, "I'm here to do science. How am I going to find a place to do science?"
Yes,
It's wonderful.
absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, now how does all of this fall apart? Yeah, he's treating his wife's really sort of undefined mental illness with snake venom, and then she gives birth. But the local midwife, the really wonderful, fantastic, moody, delivering a fantastic performance, Elsie Wagstaff as Addie Harker. Addie Harker, yet another snake name. Addie. It's amazing. and she goes, "There's something evil and wrong about that baby."
Right.
And she goes just running into the village, just yelling something like, "Evil, evil is among us." I
This
love-
lady
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think we just lost the sound.
I lost you for a second, Drew. Go ahead. What? This lady what?
I said this lady to me was the best thing about this movie. She like owns every
she's amazing.
scene she's in.
Yeah.
There's so much of that, angry mob, crazy, like, there's evil, all the kind of witchy stuff. And yet this baby is so cute. That when the baby's born, they act as if it's, Rosemary's baby, because apparently the eyes are doing weird stuff or whatever. But the baby they keep showing is so cute. I'm like, why
Yes.
bother showing a cute baby? Why not just not show a baby if you're going to have a few monster
Right.
The
I also
thing
like that I like that everybody's at first thinking, well, how can this baby be evil? And then the village collectively goes, she's been right about a lot of witchy stuff.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
I
haven't
think
had
it's time
we
to-
haven't had a good angry mob storming in a while with complete with torches.
I think
Yeah.
it's time to get the torches
the-
and pitchforks back out.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing about the baby, though, is another example of one of the problems of this movie is if you don't have the money to have a monster, don't make a monster movie, because like they or be imaginative about it by like not showing the baby and just having people react to the baby. But like, they keep talking about how the baby has like weird eyelids and everything, and it's just a normal baby.
Right. it
And
looks like a
there's all
normal
the yeah, and then there's all the like comments about the and I hate that I'm such a dork that like this drives me up the wall, but all the comments about how like, oh, it's cold to the touch, it's cold-blooded. That's not how cold blood works.
baby.
Like that's really not like movies just stop, like or crack a book if you're gonna do something about reptiles, like
I don't know,
Look
Drew.
it up.
I saw it on a movie. So
There are
Look,
so
look
many
how much
things-
money people put down on this movie. How could they be wrong?
Yeah.
Like
I should
inject
say
people
the
with snake
village-
venom, cold-blooded means cold to the touch, and that's how that works. But
well, I think
it's
that's
totally
kind
right.
of like the vampire-y thing, like they almost want to play like it's like a Dracula child or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. They should have given they should have given the baby, I don't know, some little strap-on sunglasses that looked like snake eyes or something.
Or just
That-
not show the
or just-
baby. Like I said,
or
you
just
could
show
have
it from the
showed
back.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't need to show the freaking baby.
Well, my idea about weird sunglasses would that would work too.
No,
Weird-
it would just be. I mean, it would fit with this film. It would fit with how they do things in this movie, in some cases, because
Yeah.
for sure you're kind of like, well, that was an interesting choice. But yes. Oh my goodness, I just can't get those. The thing that makes this movie so effective, like I said in my opening thoughts, is the damn snakes. I cannot get those damn snakes out of my head, because now I'm thinking about the fact that the next thing that happens is, of course, we have the
mob comes
the
with
angry
its
mob burns
torches,
down
yeah.
his lot. But first, because this is just a really great idea, let's free the snakes. Before we burn down the house, we should go ahead and free the snakes. So they
Yes.
break all the snake cages, all the snakes come everywhere. Then for some reason there's like amnesia about the fact that they freed a bunch of snakes. So later on they keep going, well, that one guy keeps going, how is it possible that there's exotic snakes? And then somebody
No.
goes, well, actually, the guy that was there before had exotic. Oh, okay, that's why. But a cobra, how could a cobra be here? I'm like, because that was one of the exotic snakes.
Exactly.
Yes.
They keep going back to it. You're totally right. That was the one thing, is they keep getting. I get that it's odd,
Yeah.
Yes.
and then they're not supposed to be here, but people keep going, well, how did these snakes get here? It's like, because you set loose like 3 dozen
Exactly.
snakes, and all of
Exactly.
them were venomous, and all of them were different kinds. Like, why
Yep.
is this so, like, it'd be like, oh, the circus train tumped over. Why are there tigers?
Yeah,
Oh,
why
I
would
don't
there
know.
be tigers
Well,
in North
why would there
Carolina?
also be elephants? Well, I don't understand how these gorillas got here, because
Exactly.
the circus train turned over. What? What did you think?
I know. No, that was
Meanwhile,
silly.
I want to mention the other. So picking up narrowly escaping the fire. That's not quite how it works, but narratively, they narrowly escape the fire. Dr. Merton, who is a German doctor in England, and Arnold Marley, the actor, is a German actor in England. He's fantastic, and he has this great German accent. Perfect. He just sounds wonderful. And so he scoops up the baby and he heads off to the shepherd's place, I think it is, and he says, "Here, take this baby. I got to go to Africa for reasons. So good luck." And he
Did
leaves.
anybody think that this was that this, even just for a minute, that the shepherd might end up being the main character of this movie? Like it really,
Sure.
they spend so much time establishing the shepherd, and then they drop him like a bad habit.
Well, yeah, you're right. Because if this is all so-called Act 1, here, shepherd, here is a baby. I am leaving for Africa. Yeah, you're right. It should be. We cut to the baby's now a 20-year-old, and the shepherd is still her father, and like in
Except
Mighty Joe
apparently
Young.
he only raised her for like a couple of years.
If that, yes. And then she's split to the woods
No, I
to live
think
as a
they.
snake.
I think
I
he
think.
raised her for quite a few years because he said that she'd only been gone for a little while, and that was like 19 years after she was born. So I think he had raised her for like 12 years, maybe.
Oh, forgive me for not being clear on this, and actually,
No.
it's weird
The
that none of us
movie
is
isn't
clear on it.
the movie isn't clear about it. Like the
Right.
whole timeline of what happened in that 20 years is vague as fuck.
Well,
Also-
also, what a weird narrative choice to have the doctor just go on to Africa, and he leaves, and he never checks on her. He doesn't write any letters. He never has
Yeah.
any interest.
Well, he guilts the
Well, he
shepherd.
says he thought about her, Jason.
Oh yeah,
Right.
Well, he guilts the shepherd. He's like, "Hey, I gotta go do doctor things, and you're but a shepherd, and this baby would be much better here with the torches and pitchforks folks who wanted to kill her. But I really gotta go to Africa. Look at the time,
Look at the time.
and not only that, but I don't get the impression he even sent, like, he kind of took her as a charge."
Yeah.
But then he quickly just pawns her off. I doubt he sent any money or
Doesn't
any.
appear that way.
Like, you can't. But he guilts. He's like, he's basically he pulls the. They are but simple folk, and therefore it's your best to handle a baby. I can't possibly take this child to Africa. I wouldn't be able to do random things,
Random research things, science things. And I actually got to say, I would like to see the story about the snake baby that the German doctor doing research in Africa brings with him to Africa.
That would have been fascinating. They didn't have the budget for that, but
exactly.
That would have been that could have been a really interesting. Actually, that would have been a really interesting Universal style.
Yes.
Or maybe possibly Hammer, but I think it fits in the Universal realm.
I mean, certainly in this era,
things.
Universal, if they want to show Africa, they just show some palm trees in Burbank, and then occasionally they cut in, stock footage of Africa.
Yeah, but it would have worked in that kind of not quite the Mummy way.
Yes. Well said. Yes. Yeah. Good example. Question, Tony. Visual effects wise, it looked to me sometimes when they showed the the doctor's compound, the one that burns down, it looked to me sometimes when the crowd was around it like it was a composite shot.
I mean, it's possible. I guess I wasn't paying as much attention, or maybe if it was, that's possible.
I can't imagine why it would be, but it sure looked like it. Sometimes it looked like.
Well, sometimes if you need to get a crowd, you can't get a crowd out into the Like if you're shooting on location, getting a crowd out there and shooting it, those are just choices you make or have to make. I mean, there's numerous reasons why that would be. But yeah, but taking off for 19 years, man, that's kind of a jerk move.
Yes.
Regardless.
Well, anyway, he comes back, and it's just at that time that the snake girl, we already know from the very beginning, has been biting people. In other words, the movie has to have all the characters catch up to what we, the viewer, already know. Like obviously, it's not that we've just sussed it out with the clues. The movie's made pretty clear that a were-snake is killing people.
Well, no. I mean, I think it was effective enough that up until a certain point, you can go, well, of course people are getting bitten because all those snakes got freed.
Yes.
Now it is 19 years later, so how many of them would have survived? we can
Well,
had
my
they
impression
wanted to
was
be had they wanted to be a mystery, snakes could mate. There could have been enough snakes, right? So
Yes.
are you blaming this poor girl for the fact that there are a bunch of snakes biting people who they somehow can't remember that
Yeah.
a whole entire house full of snakes was overturned and let loose, right?
Yeah.
So they could have gone with the more mystery version of that. But instead they go with superstition, which is also, I mean, again, they're really trying something. So for a while you get the impression like maybe it's just this old woman riling things up and being very superstitious. It doesn't end up being that, but you can kind of see where you could have a misunderstood heroine with this disbelieving Scotland Yard guy.
Yeah.
And that would be one way you could take this. It doesn't happen that way, but that I thought it was kind of effective. For a good long while. That it makes sense that there's a bunch of snakes let loose, and it would be it would track out because the villagers brought this on themselves. Right.
I just
Yes.
wish that they had gotten to the Scotland Yard guy a little quicker, because
Oh,
again, this
absolutely.
movie is more than halfway over before we are introduced to who is functionally our hero.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, that's totally valid. It's not the best paced movie.
I love that when Atheris, the snake woman, appears, she's always framed like a vampire. I mean, she's always standing in the tall grass or in the weeds or whatever. And there's all these cutaways and stuff. It's neat. She, considering they do no makeup effects with her, she functions very well as a spooky vampire lady.
In fact, I think they lean more towards the Wikipedia, and people are reviews are quick to say, hey, they wanted to be Hammer, but I think the way she's framed and the way that they film her and present her is way more universal, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
see.
But
here's the thing: they were trying to the whole reason why that this movie was rewritten in the eighth hour to be a period piece because of Hammer. And
right.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of that. That's interesting.
I will say this: Hammer in 61 was still becoming kind of what we think of it's pretty relatively early on during the whole Hammer thing.
Yeah.
So and even Hammer is slightly informed by Universal. So you can't really have one without the other. So I don't think that that's a wrong comment for you to make, but you can't say that they weren't trying to do Hammer on a budget either.
No, I agree with that. What I'm saying is the way that she is shot reminded me more of how a Universal Pictures would shoot her, if that makes sense.
Yeah, she's like the daughter of Dracula or whatever.
Well, also that it's in black and white.
Yes. Sure. I should mention among the stuff that we're into that came from Hammer at about this time, Sword of Sherwood Forest, Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll, and right before this, in the 1961, Curse of the Werewolf, which is that color werewolf movie that we did an episode on, and it's killer. Well, there's a million other movies around this time.
This reminds me a lot of Curse of the Werewolf.
Yeah. Well, the family stuff, the idea of inheritance and curses and all that
sins of the father kind of thing.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a line that the old lady gives where she literally tells the Scotland Yard agents, she says, the curse will be broken by science. That's
the best
philosophy.
That exchange.
Yeah.
Where she talks about her science, meaning this sort of occultism, versus his science. That whole scene is brilliant. It's well acted, it's well shot. It is the best thing in this movie. I wish the rest of the movie was on the same level as that.
It's unnerving because it is really unnerving to see a grown man shoot a doll. I mean,
and she's so good in that scene. I just there's
a few things that make that work though. Sorry, Drew. Go ahead.
No, what were you gonna say?
Well, we do get basically our Scotland Yard guy shows up and goes, all the snake stuff is hooey. And everybody goes, well, maybe, but you should really visit this woman who's basically the town witch /
yes,
occultism. She keeps all the mystical stuff going, and they have kind of a love-hate with this. You can tell, like, when she's right about things, it's unnerving and scary, but
And usually
also
bad news, probably.
but also she's the voice of this is gonna be good. She's their fortune teller, etc., right? So he's like, yeah, I don't believe any of this crap. She goes, okay, that's fine, you can not believe it, but it's all true, and I can show you. And your science. And she does have that great line. I like her curio box that she's
Yes.
just like skull
Mummified
like,
alligator
it's
for
just,
some
She's
reason.
sifting
all of
through
this
stuff,
stuff,
yeah.
and he's like just watching. But it's the way that she treats it when he doesn't go like, what the hell, a human skull, are you nuts? Like he's nonplussed. He doesn't care about any of this. But as she's moving through it, because it actually, I kind of chuckled a little bit, because as she's going through everything, she's just moving. If it was a more modern movie, she would also, like, we would go ha ha, and she would like toss aside the Necronomicon, and then maybe a dagger from another movie. Like,
Sure.
if this was a parody, it would have been like that. And finally she finds this doll and goes, hey, shoot it. It's like, what? Why? What? She's like, no, science will solve this. Like, your science, I'm going to turn it over. I'm basically going to, if you won't believe in the occult, I'm going to turn it over to science, shoot the doll, and guess what? After you shoot that, and after he does, she goes, ha ha, now you've set it in motion.
Huh.
Like, she's using that as the way to cast her spell, basically, or to make sure that
Isn't
the
that
prophecy
strange?
is fulfilled. And so she's, hey, you're going to shoot this girl. You're going to shoot the woman who's doing this. And what? Why would I even do that? I'm going to shoot this. This gun
I'm
is for
sort
bad
of shocked
guys.
that he's willing to shoot the doll. She's like, oh, if you don't believe, then
Well,
why don't
and
you go
also
ahead and shoot this
it's
doll
in
for
her
me?
house, so I'm like, you don't have a problem with the fact that he's shooting holes in your wall, and like, I don't know what else is
She'll
behind
wanna
it.
say-
She's kind of kooky.
Oh,
The
Yeah, a
funniest
little.
thing about this doll is he goes, a voodoo doll? And I'm like, that's a
No,
Madame
that's not.
Alexander
Yeah,
doll.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's
That
not
is a
What makes
that
you
is
say
a
that's a
doll that
voodoo
they
doll?
bought like down the street from the studio this morning.
It
It
actually
is-
they probably didn't buy it. They probably just took it from that cute baby that they were using.
right.
That
But
baby's
yeah,
got devil eyes.
it has its
Yeah.
father's eyes. But yes, I think that the fact that he's going to shoot the woman, and therefore, why does he even need to shoot the doll? Like, I assumed actually that shooting the doll was, because it was supposedly a voodoo doll, was shooting the woman. Like, that it had the effect of her being shot. But so then, if that's not the case, then why even bother shooting the doll? Just for practice? I mean, or is it like
No, it's
now?
as Drew said, it sets this curse in motion.
Yes, the
basically.
prophecy.
It's but
It's like
but
Jesus,
best
like,
not to dig
like
into
Jesus
it too
and
much.
Judas, and how Judas.
Well,
will-
yeah, she says that she can't personally kill the snake woman because she was responsible for bringing her into the world.
Mhm,
Like, she's
mhm.
one of
Yeah,
the people responsible.
I love how she introduces rules left and right, and it doesn't bother me at all. There are people who are like, "Oh, your magic needs lots of rules," and I'm like, I don't care. It truly
Well,
doesn't matter to me. But
also because of her delight and glee, I mean, she could also be just not. She could tell anybody anything, and no,
Yes.
no, you need to bring me honey and
Right.
gold, and the villagers be like, we damn well better bring her honey and gold, because that,
Yes.
if we don't, and then I would like extra bacon on this sandwich. And she needs
It is
extra
parts
bacon.
of the
Oh my god!
prophecy.
We don't. Yeah, you don't want to know what happens if the third moon comes up and I don't have extra bacon with my cheese. So she could be running the show. I think some of it's true, but also
So
she
there's
knows she knows how to work this. Now, of course, with this, we know that it just leads to the prophecy, and that's what she's getting at.
Right. And there's two other plot elements we got to mention really quickly, and the movie wraps up because the movie's not very long. One is that the young man, which is, by the way, his name's Charles. Charles meets the young lady, the snake woman, out there after he has received a snake charming flute, and so they have a
From
couple
the
of scenes
colonel.
together.
From the colonel,
Yes.
and that's how they everything, like, so much of so weird, because I don't we have some of this in movies post World War II, but not a lot of it. Like the way this goes, where somebody goes, "Oh yes, when I was in, the army, while I was in India, I
Yes.
had this flute." But a lot of stuff hinges around these. I mean, you've got stuff like even this character of bringing stuff back, like.
Yeah.
Even the grandfather in Meet Me in St. Louis, like a large part of his room is all of his trophies from the war and his time in India, etc.
Yeah, and the word you're
this-
looking for is exoticism.
Yeah.
Where you take things that are non-Western, and because you assume that your audience is largely middle-class white people, it's exotic, it's unusual to them. And
that's the riff.
yeah.
I was just watching last night. That's also the riff of Temple of Doom, right? Like,
yeah,
Temple of Doom relies heavily on that.
Well, and that is what it is, and it's troubling to people. Exoticism is something that now we debate a great deal because for those audiences that are not middle class white people, they're like, well, this is not communicating with me the way that it communicated with that audience because that stuff is not strange and mysterious to me. Those are just elements of my culture, and I don't find them strange and mysterious.
Well, again, but not to get too far into it. I mean, Temple of Doom also is meant to be a riff on serials,
for sure,
which invested heavily in that, which is neither here nor there. But I just it gives. But either way, there's so much of this exoticism that is in so many movies from like this time period, especially from the 40s as well. So. Hey, here's this flute I got in far away,
yes,
name it.
Phrases will turn up like deepest, darkest Africa and stuff like that.
Or and so and it is funny though that part of the pseudoscience does become, hey, when I play this flute, even if I play it crappily, it charms this snake woman. To the point where I do kind of like the scene where he goes, hey, so he's talking to the other woman, like they're kind of flirting with each other, and he goes, hey, let me test this out. What do you think when I play this flute? She's like, it's fine, because they're flirty. That's what's cool is she doesn't go, that is horrible. Why would you ever do that? Get away.
It's funny that you say he plays it crappily, and yet he plays a totally recognizable piece with a couple of notes wrong and the same couple of notes wrong each time. It reminded me of that commercial from like the 80s of the little girl who's playing the piano. She's playing it's a McDonald's commercial, and she's like, oh my god, I wish my recital was almost done. Something like that. It wasn't bad. I'm still alive, and I can have my whatever it is. Like she's an also whoops and also fries, and she always does the and also whoops and also fries the same way. And I'm like, that's because you didn't you practiced it wrong, and now you learned it wrong. Well, that's this guy. He for some reason he seems to have been practicing on the flute and learned this piece, but he's learned the same mistake wrong. Like he's learned that part wrong.
Yes. It's some piece from Carmen. I can't remember which piece it is now. But
and what's also weird is when he plays that, he doesn't play. It's a strange choice too, because he doesn't play what we traditionally go, oh, that's snake charmer music that I've heard.
Right.
Right. And at no point does he try that.
Right.
Which is again a plus and minus, but if you've watched enough, things from deepest, darkest, whatever made up land we're going to make that's also India and or Africa combined, right? Which is
Pakistan,
a trope,
Yeah.
Which is a trope that happens a lot. There is this certain kind of, the scale is sort of correct for that area. He doesn't do any of that. There's not a traditional snake charmer, but yet it charms her just fine, I guess, because she's never been there. But it still speaks to her snake mind,
He's isn't he playing the Toreador song? Now I've completely forgotten. I just remember that it was a piece from Carmen, and I just don't remember. Anyway, soon enough, when he goes back out looking for her, when this film reaches its climax, one of the most fascinating things, after she sort of very quickly kills the doctor that rescued her as a baby without a thought, which is
again, up until this point, people are being killed. The big mystery is people are getting killed by snakes.
Yes.
Everyone kind of thinks it might be her, but they don't know how. But also people, because each venom is different. That's the big deal. Is it seems to be multiple snakes. Like this is cobra venom, this is adder venom, etc.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
Yes.
Because she turns into a snake.
Yep.
Like she's not exactly like a were snake. Like she doesn't turn into like a snake human hybrid. She like she turns into an actual
Yeah, that's
snake.
true.
Which appears to be a cobra every time.
But she also controls snakes. She
Right.
also
Okay,
seems
so
to
that's
control
what's going
other snakes.
on. Okay.
It seems that way.
I
to
also
me,
thought that it's possible she can turn into those other snakes because we see people getting bit by other snakes. I mean, again, it's pretty fast and loose as far as the mythology.
There's also
goes.
this fascinating thing where she literally sheds. Oh my gosh, it's great. They discover a skin of the
Yeah, he
woman.
goes, "Hey, is
Complete
she
with clothing.
asleep?"
Complete with clothing.
Did it have clothing? I thought it just.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah,
Oh.
is she? Because he goes, "Hey, is she asleep?" And the woman goes, "No, that's her skin. Just like a snake, she sheds it." Which
I mean, why not? Because apparently, when she turns into a snake, like her skin,
yeah, her clothes must be an
just-
illusion of sorts.
yeah,
They're part of her powers. Is that
it's
her
a part of a
skin-
way of
Unstable
getting this
molecules.
past censors.
It's unstable molecules. Yes,
what I was
that's
saying.
exactly right. It is unstable molecules. It just
Thank
it
you,
just
Marvel
becomes whatever you
Comics.
need. Yes. Oh, gosh.
Man.
I
What
wrote
a good
for what it's
catch-all,
worth.
by the way.
Do you remember this, Tony? I don't know if you know this, but I wrote an entire monologue about unstable molecules.
I did not know
in an
this.
Incredible Hulk book. Yes. Yep. Yeah, like I wrote it something like 30 years ago. But
I think we could probably all use some unstable molecules and how our weight may or may not have fluctuated during COVID.
yes.
I'm totally cool with the suit of unstable molecules. At this
Oh
point.
man. Yeah, for real. Okay, so I almost feel okay for the listener. If you don't know, the concept of unstable molecules was a way for Stan Lee to invent the idea that the costume for the superhero would do whatever was needed
Right.
for the scene. Just simply,
That's why it works for specifically like Mr. Fantastic can just stretch. Like, why is he
his costume stretches? Sue's costume turns invisible. Yeah,
exactly.
Johnny Storm's costume catches fire and then is fine. So yes,
right,
amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Bruce Banner did not have unstable molecule pants, and that's why his clothes always were all tattered, and
You'd think at some point he'd be like, "Yo, Reed, hook me up."
Well, I think at some point didn't he have like some?
Yes, in the 1980s, when he briefly had intelligence, he received a pair of purple little briefs that he wore.
Yeah,
and the unified Hulk had like a kind of
bike shorts. He had bike shorts.
No, he had like a onesie thing in the 90s when he was the Peter David unified Hulk.
Yeah, that was.
I guess what they're calling Professor Hulk now.
That character was basically Professor Hulk. That was exactly the Professor Hulk character that showed up in the last Avengers movie. We are way off course.
Yeah.
let's get back to
my reference.
The Snake Woman.
Somewhere there's like when this episode comes out, there's going to be a horror fan on the internet rolling their eyes, going "dorks."
Yes.
No, every time. I know. I was going to say
if you haven't done that yet, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I guess this is the first time turning in, but I don't think I've made any of this any secret.
Can somebody remind me, because this movie wraps up very quickly and we should as well. Somebody remind me, why does Charles wind up actually shooting the Snake Woman? Like why does he do
he shoots the snake. He doesn't shoot her as a woman. He shoots the snake.
Exactly.
Just like clubbing the wolf. Right. Okay. He shoots or I guess anyway, Lawrence Talbot got shot, I guess it was. Anyway, yes, he shoots the snake and the snake turns back into the woman. And so everybody's like, well, by gum, we in this village all know that you just shot a were-snake, but when this report gets written up, it's going to go to Scotland Yard and they will say, yeah, well, whatever the case may be, there is a dead woman here who's been shot 3 times by this Scotland Yard agent. And so Scotland Yard in the tradition of governments everywhere just simply covers it up. And that's
well, he writes a report. I mean, the thing is, she feels threatened, turns into the snake, he shoots her. That's the whole tragic chain of events, because there are, it is tragic too, because they're kind of hitting it off really well.
She's actually fairly interesting if she's not murdering people all the time.
Well, also, I mean, it does get weird when he's like, why do I charm this woman with this flute? Because I know I don't play it well.
Right.
But even then, he he's flirting with this woman in the in the bar and goes, you know what, I'm gonna go talk to the woman I actually kind of dig. But there's been all this stuff that leads up to that, and of course she's a murderer. Maybe people are poking around. I mean, you can't exactly blame her. The whole town hates her, and people are constantly trying to kill all the snakes, which she's adamant about not wanting them dead, despite the fact that in this town in particular, there just are venomous snakes everywhere.
Yes.
Because they decided to overturn a snake
maybe they should
compound.
go. I mean, they
If
brought
the
the snakes.
movie was about 10 minutes longer, I would have liked them to have maybe developed this relationship between the constable and the snake woman a little more. Because it's like they're trying to almost hint at it being like a tragic romance, but there's not enough time for it really to be there.
Yeah, well, they decided instead to make it about his kind of disbelief and kind of rambling adventurer part. When I think, again, I'm with you that it would have been more interesting to play up the, hey, I came to this town, I was just intrigued by what weirdness, but I actually kind of fell in love, and I want to defend this person and say, no, they're not this, no, they're not a were snake or whatever you would call it. But yeah, we don't really get much of that. We get more of him just kind of wandering around and talking to people and going, I can't believe somebody would think that there's a snake woman. But it is weird that she's affected by this flute.
I love that she is. But okay, so then she's dead, and as we said, we have a wrap up scene back at Scotland Yard where just like in the X-Files, Mulder writes a whole report and then the report is buried.
This is very X-Files-esque. Like it's like almost like the Edwardian X-Files.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would love an Edwardian X-Files, by the way. I think that sounds great. I would totally watch that. Yeah. And that's the end of the Snake Woman. We should get our final thoughts and then get endorsements. So, Tony, I mean, do you feel like we've given the Snake Woman its due? I mean,
I think so. I mean, it's not a perfect movie, and a lot of this was, hey, find something weird on a lark. But I really do dig the atmosphere of the movie overall. It's not the best paced movie, and definitely the science and stuff is fast and loose, but it has so many cool elements. Our witchy woman, midwife, the superstitions of the village. It pulls in. I mean, it's very tropey. You could also put this in addition to maybe a Universal or a Hammer kind of marathon or whatever. You could also show some Corman movies around this.
Yes,
and they would fit kind of in that coolness. But yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect movie, but it's definitely everything I want from a late night mad scientist making a snake girl with poison because of mental illness, like all of that stuff. What is going on? But I really like the look and feel. I like the way it's shot. It could probably be a little less wordy and it would have been nice to see a little bit more Snake Woman or a little bit more intrigue and mystery and perhaps romance, like Drew was saying. But that's not the movie we got, so that's fine. But I like finding weird off-kilter gems. There's a bunch of other stuff that I kind of would like to just find some one-offs, like oddities. That's kind of where I live. And there was a great film series that our friend Max did called Savage Gold. He would do it in conjunction with Lars, who is now with AFS. And sorry to name drop it. This is inside baseball, but some friends of ours had a thing called Savage Gold where they would show VHS. A lot of it was VHS rarities,
right?
Or kind of sort of bootleggy. We found this somewhere at a flea market or whatever. And, those were some of my favorite films. And again, Weird Wednesdays kind of started that too with, hey, we found a bunch of reels. We don't know what the hell this is. We're just going to show it. That's really in my wheelhouse. I just like weird lost gem movies.
Yeah.
Not in a like, oh, I only like these things, because I like plenty of popular stuff. But when I'm searching through, Tubi or Amazon or, any kind of Roku channel, and there's some crazy stuff. I miss things like that King's movie channel, which had this sci-fi movie I wish I could find again now. I don't even remember the name, but all that stuff, I'm just super, I just love it. So thanks to everybody for bearing with me on this one. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. So I always like when everybody at least kind of gets the spirit of it, and that's where I really sit. So I enjoyed it. It's definitely not a perfect movie, but it is kind of cool that we all kind of got to watch this thing.
Oh, that's wonderful. Julia, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was a perfect summer, horror flick to just kind of, to get your mind off of whatever stress you got going on, because it is very entertaining. I'm trying to think if there's anything that we didn't talk about. Do you guys remember very much about the music aside from the flute playing? I'm trying to think if their score was any.
I'm afraid I do not.
Yeah, so obviously the score wasn't really super impactful. But yeah, I think it's got some neat themes that we've reviewed in other films, and it's kind of fun to see them, just the tropes and whatever just turn up here. I'm scanning. There's nobody has offered trivia on IMDb, which I think is funny. I feel like MST should cover this. I think this would be a good movie for like riff tracks or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Let
Yeah.
me see
Perfect
anything
perfect
else.
length too. It's 68 minutes.
Yeah,
Again, it's barely a movie. It's truly.
No, yeah, I'm not seeing anything just in my scan here that we didn't cover. So, but yeah, I definitely don't regret watching this. I think it was a fun evening.
Wonderful. True.
So I think I'm coming off probably liking this movie the least out of everyone. I enjoyed it. I didn't hate it, so I have to stress that, because I feel like when I'm critical of something, I'm just trying to be analytical. When I'm looking at something,
Sure.
and I think there's definitely like two ways you can watch a movie. And when I'm not watching a movie for the podcast, I actually watch movies quite differently when I'm not watching them for the podcast. Like I just watched, just for example, like late last night, I watched Night of the Demons 2, which is a stupid movie. Like I just have to stress, it is a very silly movie, but I didn't think once about any of like the logic holes or inconsistencies or problems with the scripting or anything like that, because I was just watching it to be entertained. So like if I'm watching something and I well, the way I was watching this, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have things to say about this movie, I watch it with a little bit more of a critical eye. So from that standpoint, yeah, there's a lot of problems with this movie, particularly problems with the script, because I do think that they did a pretty good job for the fact that they shot this movie in like a week for like next to no money. I think that, for a low budget kind of movie, this movie has some good acting. There's some bad acting too, but it does have some good acting. And, as Tony points out, it's got kind of a nice gothic atmosphere about it, which is cool. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. Like but I don't regret having seen it. Actually, I would totally watch it again if we did do a Snake Woman marathon. I think that this would be a great way to begin a marathon of movies about snake women.
I agree. I agree completely. Thank you, Drew. I feel like this is an example of a movie. Very briefly, last year around Christmas, we started a series called that were the one-offs. They were the what do we call it? Kickback movies. Was that it? No.
We were talking about when everybody selected a streaming movie.
Yeah. Well,
year?
no. We started doing these like we would do two. They were off. They weren't on Saturdays. They were. I mean, on Sundays.
The hangout episodes.
Yes. Well, the thing is, the great thing about the hangout movies is they tended to be stuff like this, like fairly random, and you kind of were enjoying it for its own sake. And I kind of enjoy that there was this second track of movies that weren't expected to be taken very seriously. Except for the difficulty is if we were to create a whole other track of movies like that, let's say for Patreon or something like that. The problem is then that would commit us to, on the Sunday night movies, only doing good movies, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to bite that bullet where we're committing to quality on Sundays.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think that this is. I think we just did that because it fit and we all wanted to hang out. I don't see. I guess for me, like, it's funny that Drew talks about it. I approach it differently because, again, why I wanted to bring this to everyone is I saw it was rare. I started having fun with the beginning.
Rarity might be a better way to put
Well,
it. Yeah.
yeah, but it wasn't just that it was rare. It was just like, hey, I haven't seen this.
Mm.
The atmosphere fit. Like, I want to come up with topics, and sometimes I'll write down notes, or other times I'll just kind of, keep the notes in my head. But I personally don't tend to view these in a different way, the same way Drew just described. Like, I watch movies to enjoy the movie, and that's why I brought this. And I don't think it's not right or wrong, but just, I don't know. I don't always come into it as the discussion leads to critique.
Yes.
But now, if I'm going to watch a movie that I'm actually going to review and put down on a website, that's perhaps different. But for our show, for me, part of the enjoyment is the enjoyment of the movie. And again, like, sometimes I'll write down notes or get more extensive, especially if it's one that's been well covered. Like, I'm going to have a different viewing of when we view Alien as opposed to watching this. And so I found Drew's comment fascinating, because if I were to watch this back to back with Night of the Demon, for example, I don't think, other than I might write down notes for one of them, which I didn't this time for this movie. I just kind of kept a few notes in my head. I don't often view those as differently. The only time I'm really, because again, if it's something storied that we cover, I'll look at it a little bit differently, because I want to make sure that I'm not just parroting what a million people have said about Alien, for example, right?
Yeah.
And it's inevitable you're going to go cover some of the same territory. But yeah, I think that's fascinating. I don't think either way is right or wrong, but
I have to make sure that I have something to say. So I think it's like I have to, because if I watch something again, like the way I watch Night of the Demons 2, which is like, is this movie fun? Did I have fun watching this movie? Is it entertaining? Like it's a completely different, whereas like I can look at something from a learned, more analytical way. And I think that that's just how like I've always approached and I'm not saying anybody else has to be that way. Like I just like, if I didn't approach it that way, and that's the way I approach every single movie we've done, I wouldn't have anything to say during the podcast, because if it was a movie I didn't like, I would just be like, that movie sucked. And if it was a movie I did like, I would be like, oh, that movie rules, like, because like I think I respond to things differently when I'm just doing it for me. And, I'm stretching different muscles, but I'm certainly not asking everybody on the podcast to do that. It's just how how I've adapted to doing this every Sunday, more or less, for how many years we've been doing it.
Oh, I find it fascinating. I think everybody, that's why you have it on, you have a bunch of people, other than, of course, our initial thing, which was, hey, let's hang out as friends, right? But I think everybody brings a different approach to it. That's what makes it, that's why we've got
It's why I also don't mind occasionally doing stuff that I don't like, because I feel like it's good to get outside of your comfort zone, and it's also I want it's a nice mental exercise to break down why I don't like something, as opposed to just doing the sort of knee jerk, oh, that movie sucked.
So let me ask you a general question, and then let's get to our endorsement. There are movies that I'm inclined to like this one. And so logical stuff, it amuses, I enjoy them. I enjoy the logical inconsistencies and the stuff. And then the movies that I don't like, I will really completely, I'll do a complete 180 on that, and I'll use those logical inconsistencies in one that I don't like as proof of why I don't like it. Which means it's very possible that me not liking a movie is almost completely random and has almost nothing to do with the details that you would pick on. It's not random. Stuff will fit the fetish things that I'm into, and then if it does, then I will forgive almost anything, I guess is what it comes down to. So yeah,
I think you've answered your own question.
I have indeed. But you can make comments on it if you like. You don't have to talk about
I think
my taste.
I
you
think
can talk about your taste.
Music. I think movies are also a visual medium. So sometimes, like Tony kept talking about the atmosphere of this
Yeah.
movie, which it seems like is something that everybody else, all four of us like that about this
Yes.
movie, is that it had that classic horror atmosphere to it. And so you might forgive some narrative problems if you think that something is pretty or
Well, yeah, it's what makes the movie it's whatever makes the movie more memorable or not memorable. And so if a thing stands out, like there are lots of movies where I go, I really like that film, and honestly, it's like two things I can remember about it, but that they stood out because they were great, and so I like it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there we go. Let's get our endorsements. Just find out what you've been listening to or watching or whatever you want to draw people's attention to. And it's been a couple of weeks, but we're back now, and I think we're back next week with more stuff. So yeah, I say that to mention that you may have stacked up a whole bunch of endorsements. So but luckily we'll be back and we can share more. But Tony, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, I had a bunch of pre-orders come in, and I still haven't made it to a theater yet, so we're still watching stuff. And I gotta say, the new Indiana Jones 4K box set is pretty amazing. It was cool to revisit. We've only made it through the first two, and then there's another movie and maybe a coaster that has another movie on it. I don't know. I've heard good things about what the color grading they did to Crystal Skull, so
really,
I might revisit that one. That is not a favorite movie of mine, but who knows?
Truly, Tony, it's not the unforgivable sin that everybody made it out to be.
I don't know. I got angrier when I left the theater. I was not happy, and as I drove home, I just got more and more angry. But it's been years, so who knows?
Yeah.
But also, I got the awesome Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee, which I still need to take a look through. From Vinegar Syndrome, I just got in the awesome comedy Surf 2, which they finally done on Blu-ray with a nice slipcover and a booklet and everything. And I really want to see that because I saw it on like USA Up All Night and have been a fan ever since then. Vinegar Syndrome has done just some awesome stuff. They had a sale. I also got their 4K Deadly Games, also called Dial Code Santa Claus, which I need to check out. But and then I also got it's finally in the States. It's a movie, anime movie called Arion, which deals with Greek mythology. One of my favorites, Yoshikazu, who did worked on Dirty Pair, on Gundam, just an amazing He did the whole Gundam the Origin manga. Did this Greek mythology. Now it's a little disjointed because evidently the manga is way longer, but I bought Arion like twice from Japan because he's my favorite artist. Definitely favorite manga artist. He did things like Giant Gorg, which is awesome. But anyway, they did Discotheque did a just really cool job. If you're a fan of mythology, it's at least worth checking out. Arion, just for the way it handles all of it is interesting. And yeah, so it's mainly been just different discs, different cool stuff that's come in. I look forward to digging into some of it, but also, like I said, the Eurocrypt box set and the Indiana Jones one have been just super cool to have. So the Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee may be sold out. I'm not sure, but it might be around. But yeah, that's been mainly my thing, is checking out cool box sets that I ordered a long time ago.
That's wonderful. That's really great. Gosh, okay, Julia, did you have any endorsements for us?
Sure. Well, Jason and I finally did get out to the theater,
Yeah,
and
we
decided
did.
to go. We decided to go to the IMAX, which was super fun. And we watched In the Heights, which is just a great, fun musical movie. If you enjoy Lin-Manuel Miranda or musicals or dancing or New York or any of that, anything Latin, it's a great film. It's really, really fun. So we had a great time watching that. And then I've been having a great time, as I knew I would, watching Loki, the first episode of Loki, which came out last week. So that's super good so far. And I'm also enjoying the new they released the second part of the first season of Lupin on Netflix, which is also really good. So those are my things that I've enjoyed most recently. I feel like there was another thing that I had been meaning to mention. Now I've forgotten what it was, but yeah. So there's some good stuff. Even though the spring, the spring season is TV season is over. So a lot of my shows that I usually watch are gone for the summer or forever. But there are some good things to replace it. So I'm excited.
Wonderful, thank you. Drew, what about you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, like I did watch Loki. I finally got to watch Loki yesterday, and Loki was a lot of fun. But I really haven't had much time to do really anything for the better part. Like I've been doing the Indiegogo for the Aerobicide Lucy Chaplin crossover for almost 2 months. But this last 2 weeks of it got particularly intense, and a lot of it was that I was doing these live tweets. So instead of giving, which you brought up in the opening thoughts,
Yeah, I was going to ask. You said
and
that you did better in raising money and getting attention by live tweeting, by making an event and live tweeting a movie. So why is that the case, and how did it go?
well, okay, so I what I was doing throughout the whole thing is I started doing these live tweet of where I would comment my way through a double feature, or in some cases an entire marathon, mostly of 80s horror films, but some into like the early 90s. Or in the last case, I did the entire Evil Dead franchise plus Drag Me to Hell. But I called it Creeping Dread Theater, and I will admit, it's something I've seen other people do. I know Monster Movie Happy Hour has done it quite a bit through the the Joe Bob people on Twitter. I must admit I was a bit mystified but that people would comment and they seemed to be entertaining, or find the whole thing entertaining and everything. Even though I'm somebody that does a horror movie podcast quite a bit.
Yeah.
But the other thing is I really did notice that it helped. Like I would make way more money on the days that I did it. And in fact, I made well over another grand the last week of the Indiegogo campaign, because I was doing it almost every night. Like I did, Night of the Demons coupled with Black Roses. I did the first two Ghostbusters films. That was actually probably the biggest day that I had. Probably because of my sheer enthusiasm for all things Ghostbusters. But I wish I could tell you why it did so well.
That's really cool, though.
I wish I could tell you what the secret of it was. I think it just was initially, like the first time of doing it, it didn't get that big response. I will say this: it was building a momentum. Like the first time I did it, like it didn't get that much of a response. But by the time that I did the Evil Dead marathon, there was like a crew of people that had been following me through this whole thing that were into it.
That's really cool.
I would suggest you doing it. Like for the Castle of Horror book, the 70s one. I think you could pick out some 70s movies and do like a double or a triple feature. And
it's a really interesting idea.
I think people would be into it. I really do. I think and in a way of kind of turning this into an endorsement, it's an excuse to find which movies sync up well together. Because sometimes I did stuff that was more overtly more overtly related to each other, like Return of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead 2. And I did sometimes I would do stuff like Waxwork and Lair of the White Worm, and I think people like seeing where your brain goes, and like, oh, okay, this movie's a good makes a complete meal. It's a good chaser to do one movie like that. So I if you've never done it, I would say and you're creative and you're looking for a way to promote something that's cheap, I'd say stack it, find it, stick true to your subject matter. And
how many
maybe
movies do you recommend marathoning? Like if I were to decide to try this, do 2
Okay,
or 3?
so I think if you're only going to do it once, you should do a triple feature. If you're gonna do it where you're doing it as a session of weeks, I think you start out with a double feature and then you build up. Because like the last day I did it with the Evil Dead marathon, I did, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Holy
6
mackerel.
movies.
Jesus Christ.
And I almost tacked on Darkman just to keep going. So,
well, that's really great, Drew. That's cool.
I'm
I've
rambling
learned a lot.
now. Did I mention that I'm really tired?
Yeah, I'm sure. I've no doubt.
It sounds dumb. Like I felt almost bad complaining to people that I was so tired, because they'd be like, "Oh man, I've been doing these live tweets." But I think it honestly, after a while, like I started to get eye strain because I was looking at my laptop
It's a job,
and my
my friend.
TV.
I mean,
It's
a
part of
job.
the work.
Yeah. That is pretty cool. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. We were driving, so I everybody already knows about In the Heights because it is wonderful. As Julia mentioned it, I will say that if you dig In the Heights, you should watch Siempre Tuya Acapulco on YouTube, because Vanessa, which I think the actress's name is Melissa Barrera. She was the star of Siempre Tuya Acapulco, which was a fantastic telenovela that you can catch on YouTube. And Julia and I both watched it, so we went in there. We were like, "Who's that girl? We know that girl." And then it was like, "Oh, right. She was the star of Siempre Tuya." So I recommend looking that up, because she is a force of nature. I mean, she's just really just a very beautiful, like innocent looking girl, like the perfect casting for a character like this. And what else? I discovered this movie that I started watching. I haven't gotten very far into it, but Mike Henry starring in Tarzan and the Valley of Gold. And this is a movie from 1966. And what's cool about this is Mike Henry, who, by the way, played the idiot Junior in the Smokey and the Bandit movies, but he was also a football player. And he played Tarzan in 1966 and a few other movies. And his Tarzan is the wildest Tarzan I've ever seen, because he wears a suit. And when we first meet Tarzan, he is like in London or wherever, and he gets an assignment to go check something out in Africa. And he goes there, and some people try to kill him, and he's James Bond Tarzan. It's the wildest thing, and only later in the movie, like as needed, he'll like take off all his clothes and just wear the loincloth and go do his Tarzan thing. But the rest of the time, he's literally wearing a suit and tie, and he'll carry weapons, and it is the weirdest like mesh of Connery, Bond, and Tarzan. And so I completely recommend this nutso movie called Tarzan and the Valley of Gold. It is like nothing else ever. I don't think they've ever done a Tarzan quite like this since then, and it's really wild. So you can see it on Prime. So and that's it. We will be back, I believe, next week with the first of our amazing Summer Satanic Panic series. We did it last summer. We're back again because somehow it is just fun to me to watch movies where people are on the run from Satan. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you, everybody. It's wonderful hearing all of your voices, and I hope to hear from all the listeners on the Facebook page. Join us. Check out the new Castle of Horror anthology. There is a brand new one that just came out this week called Thinly Veiled, the 70s. But we want you to read all the anthologies, so check them out. All right. Bye, guys. Have a fantastic week.
Night.
Good night.
Night.